Let's talk Aston Martin Vanquish. I love the old one with that little beautiful shoulder over the rear axle, which made it very distinct Aston Martin design. But now we have a new Vanquish here for 2025. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to redesign just a small little detail in the front end that I think looks good, but I think it could just look a little bit more nimble. I talked about that on my second channel. If you want to know what I think about car designs in detail that come out, go and subscribe to my second channel. It's called Bembly here on YouTube. Basically my last name. Pretty easy to find it. So let's jump in here, straight into Photoshop. So this is the spec that I decided to go with for my Aston Martin Vanquish, and it looks pretty good. So I went with close to British racing green, as you can see, and I also went with the silver spokes because I think bronze, black wheels today, it's kind of starting to get a little maybe overplayed, and I just wanted to go back to some more traditional layout for the wheel design, and decided to go with these Y shape. I do think they call them Y shape spokes here. I think it looks beautiful. Now I only need $500,000 to be able to buy this car and drive this around here in Colorado. Now, looking at this design here, let's go over the design from a front, side, and rear. I mean, just look how stunning this car is. This is not a redesign because I think it looks ugly or something is wrong with it. I just think, in my personal preference, if we look at the front end, let's start with the front end here. We have these lines, beautiful lines, typical Aston Martin. I love how it bends and goes in here, this curvature here, then goes into the framing and the chamfer of the grille design here. Very beautiful, this specific area in pretty much every single Aston Martin. I also love that we still have the traditional placement for the headlights here, sitting flush with the rest of the fender in the front end. The reason why I want to redesign this, if you look at the grille here, we have the framing inside of the grille, so you have these lines going like this. But what I would like to do is, see how this is concave, it's bending inwards here. What I would like to do is the opposite. I want to have them bend outwards like this, because if we look at the side view, I'm going to show you exactly why. And then one other detail I want to do is just reduce the height of this grille. I want to have it be, you see this line right here, I want to have the grille be in the same connection, to have a connection with this line. So we have a nice line here, and this is going to be the end point for the grille in my redesign. And then I want to have a smaller air intake down here at the bottom, and that's going to be that's going to be the redesign. It's going to be a very quick redesign. I also want to do a couple of changes to the rear end, but I'm just going to show you that right here because they're so minor. But the reason why I want to do these changes, if you look at the side view here, it's a beautiful looking side view, super clean lines with these lines cutting through here. We have this muscle over the rear axle, and then this long shoulder line that goes straight into the front end. They also moved back, I do believe, the A-pillar a little bit here to create this even longer hood than what we've had in previous Aston models. If we draw a line straight from the A-pillar down here, you can see that it goes straight in to the center point of the front axle. And Aston Martin, I mean, as I said this in the other video as well, like, they are incapable of making a ugly car. I mean, every single car they come out with right now is just absolutely fantastic looking. I also love this line at the bottom. I decided for my spec here, in addition to the British racing green and the silver wheels, I went with this satin carbon fiber exterior package and also blacked out this trim at the top around the greenhouse. Instead of having this be silver, I just blacked that out as well. And here you can see the satin carbon fiber down here at the bottom and in the front end. What a spec! What a beautiful spec! I don't remember what I did with the interior, but that's really not the focus of this video. But looking at the rear end here, this reminds me of the overall style here reminds me of the Valor, the special edition Aston Martin with this rear end. But this is still something I have never seen before from Aston Martin. And have a look at these taillights. This is so cool. I mean, it looks very the thing about this is the taillights, they look very industrial in a super emotional body. So the graphics look industrial, the body is extremely automotive still with all these fluid lines and emotions. It would be cool to just play around with this and see what would happen if we kind of added some some thickness down here, for example, and maybe made this thick as well at the top, just to, you know, have some fun and see what this would look like. Looks a little strange. I would probably not want to do that. But the redesign I want to do here in the rear has to do with the diffuser in the bottom. So let's remove this. That's not cool at all. So looking down here at the diffuser, you see how it's inserted into the rear end. We have this line right here for the base of the diffuser. And the diffuser is not too aggressive, actually, even though it is a top-of-the-line GT from Aston Martin. It still looks pretty subtle here, but these areas are massive. So what I want to do here, you see how these lines, this corner here does not feel Aston Martin to me. This is too harsh of a corner. So what I would like to do here is very, very simple. Just create a small little curvature here, or radius. And that's about it. That's all I want to do for the redesign of the rear end, and call it a day. There's really nothing else I want to change here, but just have more of a fluid line, because you can see that we have all these curvatures in every single corner. Up here, we have it down here, we have it in this area, we have it right here is also a small little corner, but here, this is the only area where it's so sharp, it doesn't have a radius to it. So just add a small little radius to the rear end. And with that said, let's jump in to the redesign here, and let's check out how this is going to turn out, because I'm very excited to show you exactly what my thoughts are behind this redesign. And while we do that, let's check out some of the spec and tech for this beauty by Aston Martin. So Aston Martin Vanquish returns as the brand's GT King. It is a replacement for the DBS. Will be the top of the line in the GT lineup, pricier and more powerful than both the DB12 and, of course, the smaller Vantage. Starting point, it's $429,000. US delivery set to begin the end of the year. So pretty soon here. It's already September right now. The Vanquish is notable for what it doesn't have. And this is what I love about the philosophy behind this car. Because this is a car that goes back to way more classic features. And it doesn't have hybrid assist. It doesn't have all-wheel drive. No dual clutch gearbox even. Rear axle steering, you don't get that. Even electrically driven turbochargers, you don't have that as well. And it's powered by a good old V12. However, it's not an old V12 in this case. This is a brand new V12 from Aston Martin. Absolutely great news. So head of product and marketing says it's an engine for today, but it's also one that we can further evolve, meaning that, in my opinion, how I interpret that is that Aston Martin is going to keep the V12s for a while moving forward, because there's no reason why they would invest, I don't know, hundreds of millions into developing a new V12 and just keep it for one single model. It just wouldn't make sense. 5.2 liter, 824 horsepower, 738 pound-feet of torque. This is another interesting number here. 824 horsepower for a GT that's over 400K. In today's market, it doesn't seem like it is a lot of horsepower, but it doesn't seem crazy amount of horsepower. And that's cool too, because horsepower is not everything when it comes to the driving experience of a sports car like this. So 824 is, first of all, it's definitely enough, but it's still not, you know, crazy 1,200 horsepower or something like that. Top speed is set to 214 miles per hour, which is a new high watermark for the brand. And 0 to 60 takes about 3.2 seconds. Not bad and not super quick, like 2.5 seconds, which is totally fine again. While 0 to 100 miles per hour happens in 6.2 seconds. You have a ZF 8-speed torque converter transaxle in this, so no dual clutch here. You have the choice of stainless steel or titanium exhaust, and if you go with the titanium exhaust, which I did on my spec here as well, you're gonna save 23 pounds, which I think is a substantial amount just for switching out the exhaust. And another reason why I love the stance and the design of this car, first of all, it looks absolutely gorgeous. It's a classic GT design, this car, specifically from a side view, but they kept 21 inches all around the car, and that is so important for me. I don't like the staggered setup that seems to be a huge trend, specifically with BMW these days, to have 20s in the front, 21s in the rear. It just looks a little Hot Wheel-ish. It works on Corvettes, the C8, because it already looks like a Hot Wheel car, but when you have a car like this, I want to have the same size of wheels all around, and thankfully they decided to go with 21 inches all around, 275 millimeter wide tires in the front, 325s 21s in the rear. So compared to the DBS here, the wheelbase is 3.1 inches longer, which is a substantial amount. And that extra length happened because they moved back the A-pillar and they stretched out the front axle, meaning that we have an even longer hood now, creating this very elegant looking design from a side view. So it's a strictly two-seater, this car. And this is what Aston Martin says about the interior. I love this statement. So if you want to completely detox from digital, you have the ability to drive the car as a physical object, which is really important. Physical controls are in place for all the driver focus items, drive modes, engine start stop, the electronic stability control, and the active exhaust. There's also physical buttons for the climate control settings. So thank you, Aston Martin, for dialing this pixelated interiors, massive screens everywhere. Dial that back just a little bit to have more of this craftsmanship, this pride from the designers intact in the interior, and that is exactly what we have here as well. For now, the Vanquish is only available as a coupe, but we know that they do a lot of Volante version of pretty much every single coupe they've done in the past, so this is probably going to come out as a convertible later on as well. So US deliveries are set to begin by the end of the year. Now, looking at this redesign here, and what I wanted to do is to basically just shrink the height of the grille. The width is fine, but the height looks a little too, not gonna say vulgar, but it looks too big, essentially, in my opinion, for the rest of the proportions and graphics of this car. So just shrink it down, cut it down a little bit in the lower section, and as I said, have a connection to that side intake. You see the top of the line of the side intake? I want to have that go in the bottom line of the grille. So we have one continuous line there down at the bottom. And then I wanted to create a little bit of styling underneath the grille. I'm not so sure about this line that cuts into the corner of the lower section of the grille. If I wanted to have that just be a flat surface or just have some styling go in there, but I decided to go with the latter and just have a line that kind of fades into the lower corner of the grille. And then when I was done with that part, I thought that the lower section now looked like it too thick of a piece of a bodywork there. So what I did is just cut that off and carve out some of that mass by adding a lower, smaller little slot or slit of intake in the lower section right above the front spoiler. And that is essentially the redesign of the Aston Martin Vanquish. Again, I don't think it's an ugly design at all. It's one of the most beautiful GT cars in its stock form with the big grille in the front end. And I do believe when I see this in real life, I'm just going to change my mind and say, what the heck was I doing with the redesign? It's already a gorgeous design. It doesn't need a redesign, but it was just a fun experiment to see what my idea would look like if I just fiddle around with it a little bit in Photoshop.